Hi everybody, I am so happy to see you, you amazing, beautiful, and wonderful people. I am gonna do, as you can see, I've got the glasses on, and these make either A, me far more creative and capable of doing art, or B, just able to see what I'm doing. But today what we're gonna do is a quick and easy basic tutorial on how to draw or paint an apple. And you might be like, oh man, couldn't we have done something a little more exciting? An apple is pretty darn exciting when you actually take a look at this beautiful thing. Look at that. That is amazing. I could just sit here staring at it on the screen myself. It's beautiful. So what we're gonna do is we are going to look at how to do it. And I'm gonna make it as simple and easy as possible, and you can follow along or you can grab your own apple and try on your own. It's totally up to you. As they say, the world is your oyster. I don't quite understand the saying, but it's a cool saying. I don't know that I'd want to live on a world that's an oyster though. When it comes to art, such as creating an apple out of nothing, what we're doing, really, truly, and honestly, unless you're, so into this that that's your jam, and that's okay too, we aren't really looking at getting some kind of photographic representation of this thing. If we wanted to do that, there's these things called cameras, and we all carry them around in our pockets these days. What we're looking to do is get I think of it as the nuts and bolts essence of it. We want let's call it the Zen essence. That's trendy. I actually don't like when people overuse the word Zen, being a Zen Buddhist for a long time. Zen, you can have put Zen in like sketchbook Zen. Oh my gosh, I'm putting myself down. Anyways, what we're gonna do is we're gonna look at getting the essence of this apple and not trying to make it, look like someone did a holographic image of one, because that's not necessary. Your apple can be abstract. Your apple can be, some very cool, jazzy, improvisational, it doesn't even have to be, red. You could make your apple purple. It doesn't really matter. Purple apples might be delicious. Actually, I tried something called a grapple, and it was an apple that tasted like a fake synthetic grape. It was very strange, and I guess it's a way to get people who like grape flavor to eat apples. I don't know. Anyways, I'm going off on a tangent. What we're gonna do is all you need is your handy dandy sketch pad, and you need a pencil, and you need some paint if you're going to paint, but you can also just use your pencil if that's all you've got. And for that matter, while we're talking about our implements of creation, you can use whatever you want. If you want to use a sharpened stick with some charcoal at the end, do it. If you want to use finger paint, do it. Don't get caught up in anything. Heck, if I tell you that these are my main tools that I use, don't think that I'm Moses coming down off the mountain saying that you must do this. You need to find what works best for you, and like I've said before, examine what other people use and take that information, try it out, make it your own, and get rid of the stuff that is not for you. But be kind to others. All right. Now, before we get going, because my glasses are almost vibrating with anticipation of awesome art, if you make it to the end, there's going to be a special treat for you. So make sure you stick around, and without further ado, let's get down to making some art. All right, so we're going to make an apple out of nothing, coming out of thin air. The key thing to keep in mind when it comes to drawing or painting, or both for that matter, is to try to, number one, see what the actual shape is that you're going for. You know, when you're a little kid and you look at an apple, you think it's round, but apples aren't really all that round. Well, they're round-ish, I guess. So what we're gonna do is draw the apple first. And if you don't want to paint this, by the way, just draw it. It doesn't really matter. The world is your oyster. So I'm just gonna roughly draw my apple shape, and then I'm going to change it. You'll see. So you see, it's very rough right now. And that's what I want. Just a rough shape. I need more lead. So from there, what I'm gonna do is I'm going to go back over it and kind of make it more the shape that I'm looking for. So just like this. And as you can see, it's kind of rough. It's not this smooth, you know, everything is perfect right from the get-go. That's not reality. And plus, if I try to get perfect, I'm gonna be sitting here all day, which I love hanging out with you, but I don't know how much you wanna hang out with me for that long. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roughly put the shadow that I'm seeing under there. Okay, so roughly something like that. Yeah. And taking a look at how the light falls, I want to have a rough idea of the reflected light in there. What that does is it gives it a bit of a three-dimensional look to it, I guess you could say. Okay, so these are areas that I'm gonna lighten up as this goes on, okay? And then the top of the apple can sometimes be a bit tricky. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of roughly, oops, my pen's fallen in front of me. I'm gonna roughly put in the top of that apple. And now the stem. And again, this is all just roughed out, okay? You're gonna give life to it as this process goes on. So that's the rough gist of what I'm going for at this moment in time. Nothing's perfect, right? In this world, nothing is perfect. We aren't perfect, right? We, like I've said before, we have to come to terms with the perfection that we have being imperfect. And in and of itself, that imperfection is kind of perfect. So I'm gonna use my good eraser to clean this up later, but I wanna get rid of some of these lines so I don't confuse myself as time goes on. So I want that more in here, I think. Now, there's no perfect way to doing any of this, right? You're gonna find your own way. And that's what's cool about this process, is that you find your own path. What you want to do is kind of steal from as many sources as you can and make it all your own in the end. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get right into throwing down some paint, which is always exciting. Now, if you're drawing this, you don't need to, you know, do what I'm doing with the paint. You are just going to, you know, use your pencil in the same way. So you just use the shading. Maybe in the future I'll do some stuff that's just with the pencil, okay? But that looks pretty decent how it already is, you know? I think I'm gonna take that line out there a bit. The apple needs to look like it's sitting on the ground or on the table or whatever it's on. Yeah, that's roughly it. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, and you know, I did this in a very short period of time. What you can do is you can spend a whole lot more time, you know, drawing this out the way that you want it to be. You know, you can pause the video and go back and play around with it. At the end of the day though, you want to just rough it out, okay? Now, what we're gonna do is just like in the video on the balanced rocks, we're gonna take my grandmother's advice and throw down as much color as we can, because nothing is, you know, just one color. I'm just gonna take my rings off here so that I don't keep bashing them into things. All right, so what I'm gonna start with is I'm gonna start with red, right? I'm gonna use two different colors of red though, as you're gonna see. So what I start with is just putting down kind of a wash, right? So I start on the edges always. Now, like I said, you might do this differently, and that's perfectly fine. But this is the way that I do it. And I am not, you know, the grand poobah of the universe. You must paint this way. I remember when I was in high school, I had a art teacher who, she was a very strict, authoritarian kind of lady, which is nice that she was, you know, she had a view of how things are. But she wasn't open to people doing things different ways. She was kind of old school, and she, you know, if you tried to go outside of the way that she wanted it done, she, well, didn't give you very good marks. I won't tell you her name in case, you know, if the world is a strange place, she could end up watching this and be like, ow, Jimmy, I should have failed him. Yeah, because I was Jimmy back then. So, like you see, I'm throwing down paint right now. And this is all gonna change drastically as this painting process goes on. Okay. And what I do is I really just I wanna throw down the color in a kind of rough way to start to give life to this apple. What you're doing in your painting, by the way, is you can do your own thing, but my advice is don't get so hung up on trying to be perfect. If you wanted to have a perfect apple, your best bet is to take a photo. And I'm very serious about this. If you want that realistic, you know, it looks like a real apple, then in all seriousness, take a picture, because that will do better for you and your ego than trying to paint something. So now I'm going to move on and use a deeper red. So now this deeper red, I'm gonna especially put it along the edges, because I really want to darken the edge and the bottom, because that's the way things are in this world. We don't live in a two-dimensional world. Things aren't flat. So that means that they have edges. Those edges generally are darker. And if I go outside the lines, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to stress it, because you know what? Like I said, nothing in this life is perfect. Not this painting, not you. That's why, you know what? People are so judgmental these days, and don't be like that. Be better than that. I don't know about you, but I am imperfect. I make lots of mistakes all the time, and I learn from them. It's like doing this painting and I end up going outside the lines. Well, I could stress over it, and at one period of my life, maybe I would have, but now, not so much. Now I'm kind of just happy with the fact that I'm doing this creative process, and I'm just painting. This is starting to look pretty cool. And you see how I'm really just kind of plunking color on here, right? And yeah, right now it's very rudimentary looking. You're exactly right. Now I'm going to, believe it or not, I'm going to grab some, it's kind of like a mustardy yellow. And I'm going to put that in a few places. And if you see how I'm doing, I'm just kind of plunking it down. Plunking it down all over the place. And this is it's gonna change. It adds life to what you're doing. And you are going to like the result. Like I said before, you're gonna think yourself a genius for this process that you're doing and the art that you're making. I remember when I was a kid and my grandmother first said to me, you know, you've got to look at things with different eyes and see the difference of color in things, how much color is in things, how nothing is really the way that you think it looks. And you have to start to see that. You know, on the outside, you might look at an apple and think, well, it's red. But then as you look at it, you're like, actually, it's not really red. Why did I think it was red? There's green in there, and there's, you know, all these other colors in there too. All right, this is starting to be cool. I get excited when I do this. I don't know about you, but creating something from nothing really kind of turns my crank. Put some brown in. And then I take the same dark color and I'm putting it along this edge. You're gonna see. And I will be blending some of this in. So don't fret. I know right now it looks like there's color being plunked down everywhere. But it will start to appear to be something far different as this process goes on. And I also need to think about the shadows of things too. Shadow for that. If I go quiet, it's just because I'm actually looking at what I'm doing. And if you can appreciate it, I am actually working around this camera. I have to get a better system going for this. Right now, I do not. So I'm actually trying to move my head and move my body around a camera that's literally hanging over the page, which doesn't make it super easy, but it's okay. We can make do, can't we? Yeah, this is starting to be cool. I just love painting. I don't know about you. Normally, what I would be doing is I'd be pretty quiet. My art is very much a meditative sort of practice. Wow, that actually is starting to look very neat. What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start to darken some stuff. So, for instance, this shadow at the bottom, I'm going to start to bring that out a bit. Because why not? like I said, it's exciting as this all unfolds. In the same way as we have been doing with the apple itself, don't get so hung up on the shadow. We are so judgmental, people, and each and every one of us needs to do better than that. Someone does something, you know what? Just let it go. It's not your business. Someone, you perceive them as having done something to you, let that go too. I like to look at all these things that happen in this life as lessons and teachers. And we all learn from it, or we don't, and then we have to learn the lesson later. And I don't know about you, but I'm always thankful when I learn a good lesson. That doesn't mean that, you have to keep people around you that bring you sadness. It doesn't mean that you have to have people around you that, aren't good to be around. But a lot of that stuff that we put on others is actually ourselves. So now I'm using that black. And I'm going to use it to help bring out the sides of this lovely and delicious apple. I like this, I don't even know what you call it. I call it dabbing. Not like the dance. I wasn't a fan of that. Thankfully, COVID came and got rid of people doing these weird dances. Oh my Lord. Or maybe they still do it and I'm just oblivious to it. Dabbing. Good Lord. That is starting to look pretty nifty. So what type of things do you like to paint? That's one thing with YouTube, is that this is such a one-way conversation. Is there something that you're working on that you would like to get painting? Because that's something that we could work on too. Just have to let me know in the comments and we can see if that's something that we can do. And I'm pretty sure that we could, This is neat. I really like this. So that is coming together rough but awesome. So at this point, what I generally do is I get back into my red again. Because I've put down all these other colors and it's starting to dry. And then I just kind of go over it and get things reacting a bit. Because, like I said, going back to what my grandmother taught me, things are a lot of different colors all at once. And I want to kind of bring that out and bring life to it. What you're going for is the essence of this apple. You don't need to get it all bogged down in, I want it to look exactly like it. Well, you're never going to make it look exactly like, well, maybe somebody out there can, but good Lord. Why do art? If what you're going for is perfection, maybe you shouldn't be doing art. Art is not about perfection. Art is about creation. Art is about seeing things with new eyes. It's about creating things that change your world. Now I'm actually gonna take, if you can believe it, I'm gonna take some yellow. I'm gonna put the yellow in here like this. This is a pretty bright yellow, actually. I'm noticing some yellow when I'm looking at this thing. And we're not gonna, keep the yellow quite like that. Don't you worry, this is all gonna change. All gonna change. So now I've taken most of the paint off, and I'm gonna start to blend some of it together a bit. Let's squeeze it a bit more. And now what I'm doing is I'm activating the stuff that started to dry, and I'm getting it to blend, but I'm getting it to kind of get new life as well. It changes. And I keep doing this process, and by the way, I just use a paper towel. And I move color around. I do it kind of quickly. I'm always kind of amazed at myself for just how quickly I do this part. Because I would have thought I'd spend a little more time with it, to be honest with you. But I don't. I just do it a bit rapidly and let things kind of, well, that's starting to look pretty neat. And as I do that, it kind of brings out a different vibe to it, if you see what I mean. Keeps that color there, but it makes it quite different at the same time. I like doing this. I like changing it up a bit. See, I'm going with how this apple looks to me. And at the end of the day, that's what actually matters. Not how the apple, looks on the table. Not how the apple looks to you. Well, that actually looks pretty neat so far. What I think I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back, let that dry a bit, and I'm gonna go back to my black. And I'm just gonna darken some parts up a bit. I'm gonna go back to that dabbing idea again in a bit, but not quite yet. I'm gonna blend this part a bit too. It's quite exciting to do stuff like this on this kind of forum because I've never done it before. And I'm really enjoying it. You see how I'm doing curved lines? Because the apple is curved, right? The apple is not, we don't live in flatland. Some of us live our lives as if we live in a different kind of place, but we don't live in flatland. We don't live in the land where nothing we do matters. We don't live in the land of, I can just be a jerk. We live in the land of everything matters. We live in the land of it's a better world if we recognize we're all in it together. We live in the land of we're all in it together. It's easy to be distracted by that simple fact, It's easy to see ourselves as isolated. This is looking very cool. Oh, I was going to do more of the shadow too. So what I like to do when I do a shadow is I start with black, but then I like to put in, just to be artistic, I guess, I like to add in some of the color of the thing that I'm doing. So, for example, I'll get some red now, and I'll bring some red into this. And then I go back to the black, go back to black. And I darken things up, but then keep that red kind of alive in there too, which is a neat thing. And then I clean off my brush and I bring it all together. So it's kind of married. It's working together. When it dries up, it's gonna look kind of neat. And then I like to draw it out a bit. Been really playing with minimalist art lately. And minimalist art is not perfect by any stretch. It is very much getting to the heart of things, right? Taking a look at what something is on its fundamental kind of levels. Not in a way that, you know, we tend to look at things, which is very superficially. We tend, you know, we look at a tree, for instance, and we just see the entirety of that tree. But of course, that is far from reality of the essence of the tree. The essence of the tree is alive. That essence of the tree is something emotional. The essence of that tree is something that, well, it could even be spiritual. And we forget that sometimes. We get hung up on, you know, oh, the tree looks like this round thing at the top, and then it's got this on the side, and blah, 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 blah. What I would recommend to all of you, especially if you're just getting into painting, is really study what other people are doing, what other people have done, and make it kind of like an experiment that you're doing. So see what you can learn from that. See what they did and let that help you to grow. And then you make all of that your own. That's the cool part of it. You don't stick with that one thing. You don't stick with, oh, I'm just going to do art like I've always done it. You're gonna grow and you're gonna change. You're gonna evolve. All right, let's go back to our, I should have grabbed a clean paper towel, but I forgot. I'm gonna go back to this process that I do. Whatever you want to call it. It doesn't actually matter what you call it. It's kind of blending, I guess you'd say. so fun. Imagine a world where you didn't have the opportunity to be creative. Oh my Lord. That would not be a great place to live. That wouldn't be a great life. I'm so grateful that I somehow was born into this life where I'm this creative person, that I love to do things, that I see things a bit differently, and that I try to live in a way that I learn. I'm not always successful. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. You know, maybe you are. I sure am not. This is starting to look pretty cool. Just going back to some of my other red, add some more highlights in there. This looks pretty nifty, I have to say. And I'm just gonna get some more black. Darken it up, play around with that shadow a bit. A little bit more life into it. Shadows have life, and I think they do. You have a shadow, I have a shadow. Sometimes we forget that it's there, and that causes us problems. What we have to do, and part of doing art, is actually, whether you realize it or not, it's embracing that shadow self. It likes to express itself. I'm just gonna make this a little rough along the edges because I like it rough around the edges. I like it rough. Because that's more fun. All right. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let that dry a bit for a few minutes, and we're gonna come back with it. So for you, it'll be literally a second from now, but I'm just gonna let it dry for a little bit and see how this color is going, and then I'm gonna finish it up. All right, so that looks pretty okay to me. What we're gonna do now is take our handy dandy Uniball Vision Needle pen. And this is really, I find that this really brings life to the things that I paint, okay? So what you're basically gonna do is you're gonna go over what you've done. So I'm gonna start with the stem, and I just go over it. And then now it allows me to make things pop a little more. And you'll see what I mean. So I'm basically just doing edging. And then I add some accents to it. I like to do a little drawing with my painting and a little painting with my drawing, if you know what I mean. And you'll see it really makes a difference when you're done. I even go into, the shadow of this stem. Just kind of bring it out a little bit. I don't overdo it, I just do it. Then I go out some of the parts that maybe when I was painting it, you were like, what is he doing there? That's kind of weird. And then I am going to go on over the outside as well. Once I'm happy with what I'm doing here. You have to really look at the things that you paint with and draw with a different set of eyes. And try to see, like I said, what's not necessarily super visible. And see, that really kind of makes it pop a little bit more, doesn't it? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along the edge of the apple itself. Now, I probably could have done this first, but then I would have had to really try to stick between the lines. I was trying to do this as quick and easy as I could because I know that some people are impatient and won't get to the end of the video. And some people will say, like last time, you're too chatty. Not quite sure what that means. I'm too chatty making a video. Well, I could do silent films, I guess. Do a Charlie Chaplin painting. Do it in black and white and subtitles so I don't talk. Some people you can never make happy. It's just the reality of this life. Plus, as we all know, the internet is full of, what do you call them? Trolls. Trolls exist. And they live in the internet. So just doing that along the edges, to me, this already makes a huge difference in how this whole thing is looking. Make that stem a little bit rougher looking. Yeah, man, I'm digging it. All right, so now I'm going to basically just add some accents around the place. It's kind of like, just, you know, if you had an interior designer coming into your home, and they're gonna make some things a little bit more spruced up. Thing to keep in mind when it comes to an apple or anything is it's something that it exists in the universe, so you have to bring some life into it. But what I've found is you don't want to overdo it. You overdo it and then you're going to be like, oh dang. Wow, man, that's pretty cool. I like it. What do you think? And then sometimes what I'll do is I'll kind of just bring out some of the, 3D aspect of it. Things are, it's kind of like Twin Peaks. The owls are not as they seem, and not everything is exactly as it seems. So I like to kind of play around with it for a bit. Of course, the playing around with it part can get a little bit too much. So you gotta understand when to walk away from it too, which I'm pretty close to right now. Because end of the day, what we're doing is trying to just practice our art, right? This is not us doing something that is, you know, ground shaking. This is literally just honing our skills. That's pretty darn okay. All I'm gonna do is add some stuff down at the bottom. It's easy to forget that. Can't remember if I did the line down there too, and I want the line. Because there's a definite delineation between a shadow and the rest. That looks very cool. I'm happy with it. I don't know about you, but that's a pretty nice looking apple. I like it. So then what I generally do then is after I've done that, I clean it up a bit. So take my eraser and get rid of some of that pencil from when I first went in there, and it was kind of rough. Right? Because I don't need those there anymore. Or you can leave it. I like it rough. Pretty cool. One of the best things I think about doing art is being able to sit back after you're done and going, you know what, that's pretty darn okay. I'm getting somewhere. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So I hope you enjoyed that. And we'll do more of these. This is the essence of an apple, a Zen apple. Holy smokes. Was that fun? That was fun for me. I don't know about you, but that looks like a pretty darn good apple. Check that baby out. I could eat that right now. That looks delicious. I don't know what else to say. Have fun doing this, right? As you saw, it started out as kind of just a hodgepodge of paint and awesomeness, which is already pretty cool if you think about it. Like, we're going from that, you know, a snowstorm, to that. If that's not witchcraft and wizardry and magic and creation and awesome, I don't know what is. Tell me anything else on planet Earth that can do things like this. I love being a human being and doing cool stuff. And I encourage you to do more. So before I go, just so I've done it and people aren't asking me later, I'll put these things in the comment field or description or whatever you call the darn thing. The things that I use, it's a Bic Velocity pencil. It's a mechanical pencil and I love it. I use my Pentel water brush. This thing, man, it's like Dumbledore himself did magic and created this thing. I love it. And then I am using all the time, and I was actually kind of sad the other day. I thought that it was broken because it suddenly leaked ink like in a glob. And I'm like, oh no, because I only have the one right now. But it's the Uniball Vision Needle Pen, and I love this thing. This thing is, I would have paid 5 times as much for that. And then the pad that I'm using, I have done a review of it. It's the Canson XL Watercolor pad, and it's great. And you know what I'm going to do is, as I do these tutorials, I'm going to keep them. And then when I'm done, all these gajillion of pages, I'll do a sketchbook tour of that. What a great idea. So I'd love to see what you do. I want to see your apples. So if you don't have any videos on your channel, do it now with your apple. Shoot a video. I'd love to see it. If nothing else, just holding up going, hey, this is great. Or your own words. You don't have to say, hey, this is great. I love making art. I don't know about you, but for me, every time I create, I feel alive and I feel wonder. And I can go and look at this apple that, you know, to some people, it's just this mundane thing. But when I look at it and I paint it, I pretty much revel in the beauty of this thing, the awesomeness of it. And that's something else. You know what? At the end of the day, if our art helps us to appreciate our lives, the short time we have on planet Earth, and the beautiful things that we have in our world, then man, our art for that alone is worth its weight in gold and then some. And plus, on the plus side, when we paint something as awesome as an apple, we get a delicious treat at the end. Dang, that's a good apple. That's a pink lady. Delicious. And I can't eat my art, so I might as well eat this. Now, if you haven't liked, I have a mouthful of apple. If you haven't liked or subscribed yet, please do. And hold on for just 1 second, and I have a surprise for you. All right, if there was sound effects here, you'd be getting them right now with the drum roll. This is Bella. She's just a puppy. Right, Bella? She's a little camera shy. She is literally the cutest thing. So if you're hearing any sort of whining in the background of these videos, just understand that there's a little tiny one who is also vying for a little bit of attention, right, Bella? Yeah. She's the coolest, cutest, most adorable dog I have ever met. And she loves to snuggle. Anyways, people keep wanting to see my zoo, and we're gonna get there bit by bit. So again, hit like, hit subscribe, and we will do this again very soon. You take care of yourself and the world around you. Thanks a lot.